I'd like to welcome everybody. It's Thursday, January, Thursday, June 26th. Um, Welcome to An Open Door. This is a new offering. It's called Finding the Advaita in A Course in Miracles. And Advaita means not two, and not two is one. So we are finding the places in A Course in Miracles that really point to its non-dual nature. Ken Wapnick, who's one of the leading teachers, earliest teachers of A Course in Miracles, actually said unequivocally that A Course in Miracles is non-dual. And so what we're doing is we're going through the text and we're looking for the deepest teachings, which are really direct pointers to non-duality, because the Course teaches at several different levels. It's sometimes speaking to the part of the mind that is still very entrenched in the ego and very dualistic, still sees itself as separate. But as A Course tells us all the time, you cannot teach a mind in resistance. You can't teach an unwilling mind. And so A Course really works in the most gentle, wonderful way to slowly undo the dream, to slowly undo it and work us back into knowledge of our true self. With that said, every person here is a teacher, and all of you have been with the Course at least as long as I have. Not all of you, but many of you. And many of you could be teaching this class. So my purpose is to bring us together, to facilitate. I will always be willing to take the lead, but part of learning is teaching, as we all have read. And so I encourage us to use this as an opportunity to express, to ask. Now, I will not allow people to go on too long because we do want to move through the text. And in the past, I have allowed people to take a fair amount of time. But I'm going to be a little less patient about that because we do need to move through. And it is in that vein that I suggested after Cindy and I talked to ask folks to read the section first. Then I will summarize the section in my own words, and then I'll open it up and we can discuss parts of it. So I'll summarize the points that I really find most instructive in the non-dual way, or most instructive, most best pointers, and then you'll have your own places where that really really affect you and really touched you. So as the tradition has been, I've been teaching this or facilitating this class for since I've been starting working on it since October of 2023. So we've been together. We started right on the first page, and we are now on page 214 in chapter 5. So no matter where you join us from, no matter where you are in the text, most of you know the text is, you can pick up anywhere. But as it happens, this transition is taking place in chapter 5, where if you read Cameo 15, as I put in the notes, Cameo 15 really makes it clear that this is where Helen starts to lose her resistance, to really taking notes for the voice. She begins to ease her way much more into being a fluid channel. And so the text as it follows in chapter 5 really becomes a fantastic place to just start off. We don't lose anything really by doing this, and we can just go as deep as we want. So that being said, what I'm going to do is read through some of my notes, but before I do that, I'm going to start us off in our traditional way with our invocation. And so I would invite you to just relax and just let go of everything I've just said. Let go of your day, and just be present here. And thank yourself for taking the time to join and to share yourself with us for this hour. Please accept my gratitude that you're here. And like yourself, be happy with yourself. The impulse comes to gather, the quality of how we are together, how we talk. This is our gift to the world. The purpose of every gathering is discovered, to recognize beauty and to love what is beautiful. Conversation rises out of every particle. It is all alive. Welcome to this empty table, a cleared place where something new can happen. When you take the hands of someone you love, what do those hands become? That's from Al-Jamai, the Gatherer. So let's take each other's hands through the Zoom world and let's begin. We are on page 214, The Ego's Use of Guilt, section 6. Now, I'm going to start out. I'll probably spend about 10 minutes, hopefully not much more than that, telling you what I think, and then I'm going to open it up and we can all talk about what we all think. So this section deals with the ego and one of its major tools or strategies, guilt. Guilt and fear, really. However, before we get into this, I want to remind you that the first sentence of this section tells us that something will be made more clear as we discuss guilt. So it says, perhaps this will become clearer and more personally meaningful if the ego's use of guilt is clarified. Well, what is this that is going to be made more clear? And this is in the paragraph right up above. It says it's really in the last couple of sentences, and the last, actually, it's sentence 8. And it says, we cannot lose. We cannot lose, right? That's what will be made more clear in this paragraph or this section that we're going to read. And I encourage you to take heart in this because we're going to be spending a lot of time looking at how powerful the ego's thought system is. But stay with the knowing that we cannot lose, right? The thoughts of God are with you. The thoughts of God are with you. So why can't we lose against guilt? Why is that? And it is simply because our thoughts are not personal. We cannot lose because there are no independent thoughts. We cannot lose because there is no separate person to lose. We cannot lose because there is no identity apart from Source. And we cannot lose because the ego and the guilt, which is the purpose of the ego, is all being played out in God's mind. All of this is in God's mind. It is never not there. So our purpose is to notice the guilt, recognize it's not the truth, and never has been, and never can be. That's it. That's it. So let's look more closely, because this is a really important section. The first paragraph tells us what the ego's purpose is, and this is a major piece of information about how to recognize the illusion when it is at play, which in this reality is all the time. So the ego's purpose is fear, its perception of separation. The last sentence in paragraph 1 is very interesting. It says, "But let us again remember that both are in you. Fear and guilt are in you." So one way to read this is, let us remember again that both are in you. And we can read this a couple of ways. The way most people read this is that you, the separate person, have both heaven and earth in you. All of heaven is within your mind or your awareness. And this idea of fear also is in you. So, what are you? What are you? And the non-dual answer is, you are the awareness in which both heaven and earth seem to arise. The question, what are you, is key in this section. You are the awareness in which it all arises. And the nature of your awareness is a shared one, a universal witness, which has no body, no ego, and no fear. So that paragraph 1 tells us that it's in you. But what it's saying is, it's all arising within you, and you are the eternal universal awareness. And then we go to the second paragraph, which makes it absolutely clear. And it tells us there is no guilt or fear in the kingdom. And then it tells you it is the kingdom that creates the atonement. We read that right here in paragraph 2, the first sentence. In heaven there is no guilt because the kingdom is attained through the atonement which creates it in you. So the kingdom creates the atonement in you. What is the kingdom that creates the atonement? Kenneth Wapnick says it's and this is a quote from him, the kingdom is the non-dualistic world of knowledge, of perfect unity of all creation. So in heaven, there is no guilt because the kingdom is attained through the atonement, which it creates in you, which is in you. You are the kingdom. The seemingly separate world is undone by this knowledge, right? It's invulnerable to the ego. And why? Because the egoic idea has arisen within the whole. The peace of God is unassailable because it contains everything, even the idea of separation. How are we doing here? Good? Okay. I'm going to go into paragraph 3, and I'm just summarizing these paragraphs. Go ahead and read along the paragraph if you want, but you can also just listen. So paragraph 3 goes into even more explanation of how to recognize when the idea of separation is at play. So here we're getting all these hints, all these, I mean, you can't just be a better teacher than this. It's telling you when you have these thoughts and feelings, you know the idea of separation is at play. It says guilt is always disruptive. Anything that engenders fear is divisive. Divisive is separating, right? And then it tells us there is actually a law of division. So once we accept division as real, we accept the laws that it seems to have, right? And then we are told clearly that all guilt, no exceptions, not some guilt, not a little bit of guilt, all guilt arises from the idea and belief in the idea of separation. So I want to just say, separation is not a physical reality. Separation is an idea. It always has been, and it always is just an idea. It's that part of the mind that accepts that the law of division is true through its perception, through its bodily perception. And now we get into the really meat of this, even though what we've already read is really sound and rich. It's full of richness. Paragraph 4 gives us a masterful explanation of how the ego works. It's important to point out consciousness made good use of Helen and Bill's psychoanalytic strength, because this is, as Kenneth Wapnick says, it is a non-dual, it's an explanation of non-duality using psychology, which is phenomenal. So paragraph 4 is a masterful explanation of how the ego's thought system works. And it is unconscious. And I want to really, really encourage you to take that in, the unconsciousness of it. So simply put, it goes like this, and it follows for the next few paragraphs. But simply put, the idea of separation arose as a desired experience in the awareness of oneness, in oneness, in the mind. We'll call it the mind. Words are not very good, but simply put, the idea of separation arose in the mind of one, of Source. It just arose. and oneness, which knows and holds all possibilities, infinite possibilities within its oneness, can choose to experience anything it wants to. And so why not experience its own opposite, even though there is nothing opposite from it? It chose to experience the idea of its own opposite while knowing it could never be anything but itself, because there is nothing but itself. But in order to experience itself as not one, it had to hide itself from itself. And boy, did it do a good job. And it did a good job because it is the mind of creator that figured it all out, that made the rules, that set the stage, that dreams the dream. It is unlimited mind. And so it did. It created an entire idea, a thought system of separation. That's the thought system of the ego. But this thought system comes at a cost, or at a seeming cost. There is no real cost. It's just a seeming cost, right? The cost of fear, the cost of guilt. But at the same time, it comes with a cost. Its own solution is already there. It's hiding. There is a built-in fail-safe solution to the idea of separation. And that is what we are doing here now. We are using the fail-safe system that was built in to the idea of separation. That's what we're doing. So paragraph 4 continues to explain this fail-safe solution, or to tell us how to recognize when the ego's thought system is at work, and it begins by explaining the birth of guilt. Where did guilt begin? This horrible, awful feeling that is so unconscious, and yet we carry it around all the time. Guilt was born from the idea that we had successfully separated from God, right? We couldn't pretend that we were separated and have the experience of separation. We had to really believe it, right? We had to unknow all that we knew in order to really immerse ourselves. So guilt was born when the idea that we had successfully wiped out the oneness of God came into play. And so it says at the end of paragraph 4, any time that we identify with the ego or the idea of separation, we must perceive ourselves as guilty. And so as a way of understanding how unconscious this is, ask yourself if you walk around all day feeling guilty. Most of you would say, not really, maybe a little bit. But do you walk around all day accepting separation as real? Do you go into the refrigerator and open the door and get food out and feed yourself when your body tells you you're hungry? Yes, you do. Would you step into the path of an ongoing bus? No, you would not. Do you address your neighbor as a separate person? Yes, you do. Right? So this is the thin veneer of daily life, and guilt is underneath that. We must operate in this world in order to survive in this world, accepting separation as real. So the thin veneer covers over all the unconscious guilt, all of it. This is why we accept an attack from the other as being a real attack, and we get angry about it. This is why we respond to the oncoming bus by jumping back onto the curb. It's unconscious. It just happens. It's built into the system, and there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong. I'm not suggesting you don't jump back onto the curb or you don't open the refrigerator door. The point is just to see how this thin veneer covers up what's going on underneath. And then we have paragraph 5 and 6, which explains what's underneath this thin veneer, and that is the monster. And the monster is fear and guilt. And 5 and 6 paragraphs explain how we put our foot on the head of the monster. We put our foot on the head of the monster in order to control it. That's a term one of my former teachers used. So moving into paragraph 5 and 6, we continue with an explanation of the ego's thought system. We've already discussed how the idea of separation arose and how oneness entered the game of hiding from itself, playing the game of hide and seek. Oneness is hidden, and we believe we're alone and separate. We've attacked oneness, we've attacked God, and we believe we've won. We believe we have separated because we deny that everything is one with us. We deny our neighbor. We believe that we can do unto others, and we don't feel it, right? That's the acceptance. And now God is on the warpath, and God is going to come after you. You being the aspect of mind that has veiled itself to itself and is still believing that the separation is real. But this fear and guilt is so unbearable that it can't be contained. Right? We cannot walk around in this world feeling fear and guilt all the time. There are many people among us who do walk around feeling it often, and it is unbearable, is it not? It is unbearable. And it should be, because it's a reminder that it's not real. Right? But for those, and all of us do this until we don't, when we push it into the unconscious, then we do what's called projection, right? We project the fear and guilt, all that we cannot stand to hold within ourselves, and onto something else. This is how the ego is perpetuated and how this world is perpetuated, right? Someone else is guilty. Something else did this to me. Some other person, some other place, some other thing, some other group, even time itself is awarded our guilt. If only this had happened in another time. Right? Someone else did this to me. It would have been different if it happened in another way. Right? I could have done this if only. Right? Projection is a major, major distortion of the mind. And it's very powerful because the mind that conceived of the idea of having an experience of separation was God's mind. That's why we did such a good job, right? It was God's being that made the idea and decided to play the game of hide and seek. So now I want to move on to paragraph 9. So to continue with the deeply subconscious idea of guilt and fear, we move into a very important idea of self-punishment. This is really critical that we see what we do to ourselves, right? So the egoic idea requires self-punishment as a way of avoiding the wrath of God. Again, all unconscious. Self-punishment, unconscious self-punishment, which includes the idea of getting sick and having bodily discomfort, right? It doubles down on the egoic idea of separation by taking away the authority of judgment from God, from God, and then using it to essentially say, see, I punished myself for you, God, so you can go away now. See, I am suffering because I chose separation. See how I suffer, God? So you don't have to make me suffer anymore. This is putting your foot on the head of the monster. I will punish myself so you don't have to. And if I punish myself, maybe it will be a little less than what you would punish me for. So unconscious, so unconscious. So by punishing itself, the egoic mind mitigates, that's what a course calls it, it mitigates the punish of God. We can all look at ourselves, our grandchildren, our children, and see how this plays out. This is like a toddler getting into the cookie jar that its mother said was off limits, right? And then fearing that mommy will find out it has eaten half the cookies, the child spanks its own hand before mommy does, or cries before mommy threatens anything. Do you see how this works? This works on a gargantuan level. So I'll take your question in a second, Cindy, but I want to finish first. I've just got a few more things to say, and then we're going to open it up. So the rest of this section takes us back into the non-dual solution. It has pointed out all the unconscious stuff that we do. And then it takes us back into the non-dual solution. And it does so by reminding us that we never succeeded with separation. And that the game of hide and seek only ends when we recognize ourselves again, when we stop playing hide and seek. And so I just want to look at a couple of sentences in paragraph 12, sentence 2 and 3, which says, the function of thought comes from God and is in God. As part of his thought or God's thought, you cannot think apart from God. God himself or itself orders your thought because your thought was created by God. Guilty feelings are always a sign that you do not know this. These sentences explode the ego. And if we truly understand these sentences, we will truly understand there is no separate self. The function of thought comes from God. Every thought you think you have, you do not have. God is, the thoughts are arising in you as oneness, as awareness. There is no separate thought or no separate person having thoughts. You are part of God's thought. We, all of us, are the oneness of God's thought. We cannot think apart from God. There's no separate thinker. So if we have thoughts that we judge guilty, that's the ego judging your thought as guilty. What do we do then? What do we do when a nasty thought arises? We say, oh, what a nasty thought. Turn it over to the Holy Spirit. Don't worry about it. Don't judge it. Don't continue with it. Don't go down the rabbit hole with it. It's arisen. Why? Because it did. Is it what you are? No. No. Give it back to God. This is it. A nasty thought arises. It has arisen from source. See it. Let it move through you in the flow and give it back to source. You may want to play with it for a little while, like a cat plays with a mouse. I'm going to play with this thought and see where it goes. See what happens to me when I think this thought for a while. But give it back. Give it back to God. And if I feel guilty about a thought, then I always know, oh, it's time to give this thought back to God. That's it. I'm going to open it up now, and Cindy's going to start us off. And anyone who has some, well, let's see, I'll just go to Cindy. Take it away, Cindy. You're at the head of the table.
Oh, I like being at the head of the table. I raised my hand because there was like that, I don't know how to put it. Well, there was an internal contraction and a little bit of a heart pain. And that's when I raised my hand. And I wanted to marinate in this idea of self-punishment. That's where and so um separation is just an idea. Never left God. Um but through forgetting that the ego decided to play this way, I feel guilty for leaving God, which I never did. And my fear of God's punishment has me continually punishing myself. I would love to hear, like you talked about the cookie jar, and I actually have an example from when I was a kid and I didn't go to school one day and my mother caught me and I punished myself. It's pretty funny, but I'd love to hear from you the different ways, subtle or otherwise, this punishment shows up. I can sit in my own life, but there's this there's this like mind, you were talking about blowing up the mind. My system is blowing up as I sit here with, okay, separation never happened. It was just an idea, decided to play, forgot I was playing. The ego, like the ego self, forgot it was playing. But now it feels really guilty because it left God, which it never did. And it feels so bad. It's continually punishing itself so that God doesn't punish it. Like if I punish myself enough, God won't punish me for something I never did. That's what I heard, in your description. And the question is, what are some of the ways that punishment shows up
Let's
other
look at
than
it.
just thought?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, absolutely. I have a thought about my sister that is very uncharitable. I feel bad about having the thought. I've just punished myself for God, right? I've just taken the idea of separation and I beat her up with it with an idea of projecting my own guilt onto her or my own dissatisfaction with myself onto her, and then I feel guilty for it. The whole world of guilt is self-inflicted punishment so that God can't get to me. I feel guilty about it. I know I did wrong, right? And a lot of times it's unconscious. Have you ever seen a dog do something that it knew you had told it not to do, and the dog's like, I know I shouldn't have done that. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. And that's why when I see a dog do that, oh my gosh, I just want to hug it. It's like, oh, don't feel bad, sweetheart. You didn't mean to do that. It's okay. You know, the getting sick, the body's sickness, that is punishing separation by the whole vehicle of separation, getting sick as a punishment before God can get in and wreak its own havoc, right? The only solution is to allow the non-dual solution is to allow the feeling to arise, accept it as having arisen in your awareness, and give it back to source where it belongs. Okay? Just give it back. But the ego wants to take a hold of that thought and say, that's my thought. That was mine. Wow. And now I get to do something with it, right? And if it's an ego, if the ego has accepted a thought at its own, you can be darn sure it's not going to do something good with it. Right? And so it will punish itself. Okay. No big deal. Recognize it, give it back. Patricia, come to the head of the table.
Thank you, Amy. This is wonderful. I am loving this. Hello, everybody. Good to see you all. I just wanted to give a very subtle example of guilt. I went to my local restaurant, and the owner of the restaurant and chef orders sourdough bread, and I just love it. And so he always gets me a loaf of bread, and it's delicious. So I was very grateful. So I was in there, and he was speaking to a woman, and the woman spoke English. And I was so grateful. For those of you who don't know, I live in Mexico. And I apologized for not speaking Spanish. Now, I felt guilty that my Spanish wasn't very good. But I didn't realize it at the time until we started to discuss this, how subtle the guilt is. I grew up Catholic through my fault, through my most grievous fault. I was always guilty. That's what I grew up believing. So here we have another conditioning, another belief system that I took on, and many of us who grew up Catholic understand that belief system. So it's the subtlety, and I think that's the important part, the subtlety of fear, of guilt. And my parents certainly were also grew up Catholic, so they were subject to this conditioning as well, which is then imposed and projected onto us. So you can see how all that conditioning just affects us.
Let's take it back a little bit. When did you realize the guilt was when you was talking about speaking English or not?
Or not speaking Spanish, that I don't speak Spanish very well. I
Okay.
realized it when we were talking about the subtlety.
And so let me just see if I can take that back a little bit further. And,
Sure.
and maybe I can't. I don't know. But so what you accepted was that you were limited and that you couldn't communicate with this person because you were separate, and there's
Mhm.
no mind-to-mind communication because you're separate. That is actually the original thought. I have accepted separation, that I'm not one with this person, right?
Yes.
That's how subtle it is.
That's how subtle it is.
Yes,
That's
and
such an important point.
thank you. That's
Thank
how
you for that.
subtle. Yep. And then I don't love myself because I am not willing to see this other person as one with me and loving me. I don't trust that they love me and that they're one with me. Boom, you're off and running.
The separateness, yes.
Exactly, off and running.
And the guilt is the separation, which, I didn't recognize. And she spoke English and she was very kind and very gentle. It was my problem, not hers. That's where the projection comes in.
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
Thank you,
So,
thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Chuck, come to the head of the table. It's good to see you, Chuck.
Yeah, it's great to be here. You struck one thing that's really, I guess first I want to highlight a couple of things that you said that were really landing heavily for me about you can't fail. And what you just recently said, I've known through the course of that the guilt wasn't mine, but I didn't know I could give it back to the higher power the way you've been saying it. And I really appreciate you saying it. I don't know, I guess it's kind of obvious, but it never landed the way it just did today for me. And I really, really appreciate that. And the other thing on a lighter vein that you just struck, I had a dog. We had a dog my brother and my parents didn't allow the dog up on the couch and the chairs, but my brother and I did, and we'd let the dog come up and sit next to us and with his head on our lap and stuff. And it was crazy. The dog would hear my parents drive home and park into the garage, and as soon as she heard that, she would lower her head and she would just lump off of that couch real slow and hang her head and sling it. It's what you just described. It's just a light thing, but it really landed with me as I remember watching her do that every time that my parents came home. She would slink off of that couch and carry that. So that's not a very major thing, but it was a nice little thing that you awakened me with. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chuck. I mean, what Chuck just reminded us of is the ego will take the thought and call it its own. So that's where the guilt arises, is when the ego says, oh, that was my thought. But if there are no separate thoughts, and if there is no separate person, there's only the one. There's only the one. There is no Amy. There is no Chuck. The thoughts are just arising in the awareness whose name is Chuck in the dream, but they're just arising. You can give it right back to where it came from. That's the purpose, is to let the experience arise. Source says, oh, this is the experience of separation. How interesting. Guilt arises when I believe, when thoughts of separation arise. And now I'm handing it back to myself again, right? It's just the source handing its own thought back to itself. Thank you very much. That was lovely. Okay. Thank you, Chuck. David, and then Sam.
Hello. When listening to all this, and one of the things that what came to mind is for some reason or another, I felt like I chose the ego, and maybe it was curiosity, maybe it was the grass is greener on the other side of the fence, whatever. But it's almost like when I felt like I chose it, then the door slammed behind me. And it's like, here I am, I'm stuck. There's nothing I can do about it. I made a mistake. I'm separate. I'm separated from God, even though I didn't think God loved me at the time. Maybe that's why I decided to leave. And so I might as well, so I'm just stuck with it. So I might as well just live here. And even though I feel a fraud, I don't feel like I belong with the ego. I don't feel like I belong in this egoic world. But here I am. And so 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 I punish myself. I make bad decisions on purpose, I think, to punish myself. I think I'll just drink a lot, or I think I'll make these bad decisions and I'll drop out of college or whatever it was, because it's almost like I deserve this punishment because I made this big mistake back in the day. And so, but listening to how you were describing this, and there's myself, there's the heaven and there's the earth. There's the godness, and there's the non-duality in my system, and there's the ego. And I get to decide. I mean, and I have the power. What, I don't?
No, no, David. No. There is no David. There is no I who decides.
Oh, tell me more.
There is no I who makes a mistake and chooses wrongly. This is where A Course in Miracles can take people off into a sidebar with the dualistic mind and leave you there. You've got to come back to the non-dualism. So A Course says you're 100% right, David. A Course teaches you that you must decide, right? You have to decide for the Holy Spirit. And that's okay. That's true. That's opening the door so that the egoic mind says, oh, there is another way of looking at this. Like, there is another way. But when we go further and further into the teaching, we become aware that this split, the I, David, and one, the source one, that split doesn't exist. It's you see the square that I'm in, and I've got these two hands here. It's all happening within the one square. And the one square is what you really are. You're not the I who has to choose. It's all one. The whole thing is playing out in the mind of one. There's no separation. There never has been, and there never will be. Every thought, this is why A Course says, the thoughts you think, you think. You think independent thoughts. You do not. There is no independent thinker. There is only mind of God, and you are that. All of it is arising within the awareness. Remember this morning when we talked about the empty space? Remember when we talked about the empty space with Helen's class? With it?
I wasn't there.
Oh, you weren't there. I'm sorry. Okay. All right. In the square that I appear in, and we can go over if we need to. That's one of the joys of being in Cindy's space. We can go over if we need to. In the square, you can see all kinds of things in my square. You can see me, you can see the lights, you can see the books, you can see the flowers, but it's all happening in the one square, in the space, in that space, right? What we are is the space. We aren't the objects. We are the space in which all the objects are seeming to arise. And we look at the objects and we say, that's there, and that's there, and that's there, but it's not. Even the one that appears to be speaking is the space. And that's what we are. And we're never not that. And that space is pure, unlimited, unconditional, everlasting. Pure love, which allows all to arise within it. You can't see it, you can't taste it, you can't touch it, you can't feel it. But it is what gives room for everything in the picture to appear. And that's why the thoughts we think aren't our thoughts. They're just arising within the space of awareness. And that's what you are, the pure, unlimited awareness. So when a thought arises, when you recognize, oh, I thought that thought, right? Just return the thought to the space. You can allow the thought, you can play with it, you can do whatever you want, but return it. There's no independent thinker. It's just arisen in your awareness. And you are God's being. You are that awareness. That is your true nature. You are the open awareness in which the thought arises. And then you're the awareness that is aware a thought, oh, it's arisen. We will go more and more and more to this. We will talk about this in every class.
Thank you. So it's almost like if I recognize my power is in my recognition of my powerlessness.
Your power is in the recognition that you are the all in which everything that seems to be separate appears to arise. That's your
Okay.
power. Take your power back.
All right.
Take it back. Right. I love you, David.
Hey, I love you too.
Thank you for your question. We're going to go over. So anyone that needs to leave, don't worry about it. But if you want to stay, I'm here. I'm going to stay. I'll stay until 1:15. Okay. All right. Excellent. Sandra, what you got?
I'll be very quick. Oh, thank you, Amy, for everything. I just feel the urge to share my own experience, and that is that as thoughts come in, I've given up with labeling them nasty or ungracious or judgmental or even, oh, what a lovely person you are for thinking that beautiful thought. I've given it all up. In fact, all of it is a gift for me. All is it a gift I've given myself to have this lovely experience called life. This whole life. Who do you think?
I'm just asking you to elaborate on that.
Yes. It's just so amazing. And now after if a thought comes in following the thought, the follow-up thought usually is, oh, I got to experience that again. I got to see what that's like. And it's just a beautiful flow. And I no longer feel any urge to give it up or give it back. It transmutes into something else. It expands. And it's absorbed into the whole in a way that is very lovely. So even labeling the thoughts as good or bad or whatever, they're all here for me. Me, big S, I guess. That's all. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. I think someday Sandra could do a whole class on what she just said, right? A whole class on that. That's a very advanced teaching, what Sandra just said. But we can talk about that later. Josephine, you're at the head of the table.
Thank you, and thank you. That teaching of yours was so masterful, so cogent, so clear that it helped me. I can't tell you how much further my understanding of the course was by just this session with you. Most particularly, I had trouble with many things about the course, but one being that my mind thinks with the mind of God, or some such way of saying it. I did have a lot of trouble with that, but the way you outlined it, it makes perfect sense to me. And I am now able to accept that totally and understand with such much greater depth what the Course has been trying to teach me. It's saying, I am one with God, the way the Course in the Blue Book puts it. I am one with God. And the way it was outlined by you today, I so totally now can accept that. The oneness makes it so much clearer and acceptable. So I just needed to tell you that you've helped me make a major step forward in my understanding of the Course. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. And Josephine, once we really begin to live and sink into the acceptance that, and it's not acceptance, it's an experience that I am mind of God at play. That is what I am. There is nothing separate. That is unequivocal. That is completely literal. Then we move into Sandra's teaching, in which we begin to say, well, that thought just contained a lot of energy. Like an hour ago, I might have called that a shitty thought or an uncomfortable thought. But Sandra then teaches us, well, actually, what an interesting feeling that is. It's not threatening to me at all because I know that I am God's mind. I'm eternal, unlimited, and that's what I am. And wow, that begins to change every experience we have. And so this is what we're playing with together, you know? And then we go out into the world when we shut down the Zoom and the world wants to pull us back in. And then we come back. We come back over and over again, sharing together and reminding each other of all of this. This is the teaching. This is the fail-safe. This is the fail-safe. What we are doing right now. We cannot fail.
And I might add, thank you, Sandra, also, because it reminds me of a teaching of the other day from Cindy, which is acceptance. And if I go to where you are, oh, life is so much more peaceful. And I will remember this, another teaching. Thank you, Sandra.
All right. So I have a question for you. Oh, and then Elizabeth. Elizabeth, come to the head of the table. It's so good to see you. I'm glad you found us.
Me too. It's been very, very intense these last months. I think too, the more we get this closer. I was fumbling to get onto this when I saw the fear guilt thing, and my mind this morning goes, oh, this fear thing, no, this guilt thing again. And I just freeze. It's like, and I'm on so many of these related things constantly. And it was a real tough thing for me to pay attention. It kept saying, don't do much today. And well, I'm just going to relate. I really am going to re-listen to, because something in your clarification about the guilt and the fear started to sink in. And it's terrifying. When Patricia rose her hand, I'm putting something together that I'm terrified to look at. And yet it's going to help. I think once you forgive one completely. I have a sister named Patricia. She goes by the name of Trish. She was the firstborn. I'm the middle. And then I have a younger sister. I'm now 70. And we now live pretty close to each other. And our relationship over the years has not been a hate one, but we haven't had much of a one. It would go in and out, but we have all been there for each other. At times it was nice, and then just sort of whatever. But I realized, they say sometimes we don't realize how much hate we really have. And I was starting to remember there were some incidences where I said, she doesn't care about me. I mean, I'd been in hospitals where I was practically dead. And she would come in like an obligation, as if she had to check in on me for, at the time, my father or something. And I was paralyzed too for months at a time. And then when they finally were able to get me back, I still don't know how I ever recovered all these times. She just looked at me, she goes, "Oh, you're not that ill now. You can get up." And I used to have to take care of my dad at a point. And I looked at her. I mean, I could hardly still get out of it. And they kept telling me, "Don't do too much." And something happened within the last year and it flashed back up. And we've, tried to, have a nice relationship now, but I realized it's me always trying to appease her in a sense that as long as I'm agreeing with her and being nice with her, I mean, she's a very nice person, but I realized there's, the same thing going on under there, very controlling, very opinionated. And she happened to be out of town for a week. She's supposedly flying back in today. And right now I had a thought that something came up about something not too long ago, even though I saw her and wished her a good trip. I was like, I don't even want to see her. I have to pretend, "Oh, how was your trip? I've already heard, I really don't want to know." It's like blah, blah, blah. We can't get into these kinds of discussions with my sisters. I mean, they're just not even there. And so I sit there, I'm so different than I've been in years. And it's really hard for me, although, we do that little social thing. I'm like so uncomfortable at times, but we're there for each other. And I realized it's got to be something in my projection, because something happened when I was about 8 years old, and I literally had a white being light come to me. And the night before, I had a vision, and I know it has to do with Trish. And so there's just something really, I think, like you said, it's one thing to say we're non-dual, but this unconscious guilt we don't even know about is so important to have a place like this with those who are ready, because we're going to all need to get this, at some point where it finally just takes over.
Yeah.
And it sounds, so I get it so many times and it sounds so minor. And then when I even got onto this and my other sister texted, "Oh, I heard Trisha's plane will be on time at 4:30. I was like, "Oh, yay." And, oh, and it sounds weird because you would think it's not like we ever beat each other up or anything, but there is something in there. And how many times I listen to them, if I say too much, they will say, "Oh, you're talking too much," or they don't want to hear about this. And I go, "What do I have to do? How was your golf today?" "Oh, wonderful." I'm not there anymore. So I just, again, and whether it's Cindy, I followed you, Amy, also when you were with the Awakening Bill group. Thank you for holding especially this part of it, because this does take someone, and I respect it, because I thought I couldn't at this point do what you're doing, or even Cindy with the tech stuff. So I'm expressing my gratitude and anyone who shows up, more than you can imagine. And I really need to re-listen to this as I get to communicate with her, because underneath I'm feeling that I'm putting on this act, and the feelings, I'm allowing the emotions to come up within myself and not bury them, so I can see it's not just about her, but this is part of my own, maybe that reflection, especially when it's a quote family member.
Okay. All right.
So
Well,
thank
thank you. Thank you for that, Elizabeth. Thank you. And that's what we're doing here. And I will look forward to hearing how your explorations go. But always forgiving, always forgiving, always forgiving, right? Yourself first. Okay. I wanted to ask a very quick question. We have about 1 minute and that's it. How does it, and you can send Cindy emails too. Instead of reading through each paragraph, I want to know if it works for me to summarize everything. Have you read it before? I will okay, good. That's what we'll continue to do. So each week we'll get an assignment of reading. Good. And then take your notes. I'll take mine. We'll go from there. And that's how we'll get through the book. All right. We're going to do this whole book. All right. That's
Beautiful.
what I say now. It's my intention.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Cindy.
And we have 8 various meetings a week, so check the website. They're all open. They're a little different, but I think you'll love them all. Let me stop the recording.